Hi, and thank you for visiting my channel. For more information, kindly subscribe and follow. Now let's get started.
Stephanie McMahon has sent a message to Roman Reigns, Jey Uso, Jey Uso, and the rest of the bloodline. The Anoa'i family featured in the latest edition of Stephanie's Places. In late 2024, the OG bloodline feuded with the new bloodline. Solo Sikoa formed the newer version of the group after Reigns lost the undisputed WWE Universal Championship to Cody Rhodes at WrestleMania XL. He eventually kicked Paul Heyman and Jey Uso out of the group and recruited Jacob Fatu, Tama Tonga, and Tonga Loa. On social media, McMahon reflected on spending time with the Anoa'i family and stated that she was privileged to hear their stories. BBQs with the bloodline. Privileged to hear your stories about Saturday football games and grilling with your family, especially when things got out of control. Precious memories for sure. Stephanie's Places at WWE at ESPN Plus at Omaha Prod at WWE Roman Reigns at WWE Usos at Sikoa, wrote McMahon. Jey Uso stated that the bloodline are still the ones despite being separated. Jey Uso is no stranger to being on his own after he initially departed the bloodline in 2023. However, he believes the family will always stick together and be the ones despite feuding on TV. Speaking on the Battleground podcast, Jey also revealed that the bloodline will always keep adding more members. He said, "Not really, Us. We the ones, right? We the bloodline, Us. Whether we be separated or not, we just that good now, in every way. People need to step up because we gonna keep running it, Us, and we're gonna keep adding more. Bro, we deep. The bloodline run deep. All the members of the bloodline are currently focusing on their respective storylines. Roman Reigns is feuding with Seth Rollins after Paul Heyman's betrayal at WrestleMania 41. Sami Zayn also suffered the wrath of Rollins and Braun Breaker. Meanwhile, the Usos remain on separate brands, with Jey Uso holding the World Heavyweight Championship. Solo Sikoa and Jacob Fatu, alongside the Tongans, are on SmackDown. Tama Tonga and Tonga Loa are currently sidelined with injuries. It had been months since Stephanie McMahon walked through the curtain of WWE television. The last time fans saw her, she had stepped down from her executive duties and quietly slipped out of the public eye amid family transitions and power struggles. But all that silence was shattered on a stormy Monday Night Raw, when her music hit and the arena exploded in disbelief. The billion-dollar princess returned. Dressed in black leather and crimson heels, Stephanie strutted to the ring with the poise of a woman who had nothing left to prove, but everything to reclaim. She didn't come with a smile. She didn't wave. Her eyes were locked on the hard camera, and her message was clear before she even spoke. She was here to send a message to Roman Reigns, into the bloodline. As she stood center ring, microphone in hand, the crowd began to buzz with anticipation. "I've sat back long enough," Stephanie began, her voice sharp as ever. "I've watched the bloodline tear through this company, tear apart families, and manipulate every inch of power they could get their hands on. Roman Reigns. I see you. I see the empire you built. The manipulation. The fear. The control. You call yourself the tribal chief, the head of the table, but I built the table." The crowd erupted in chants of Stephanie. Stephanie. But she wasn't here for cheers. "Roman, you claim respect. You demand loyalty. But you forgot that this business isn't about blood, it's about legacy. And the bloodline? You're walking on mine." Stephanie turned slightly, pointing to the camera with fiery intensity. "Jey, Jimmy, Solo, I know your stories. I've watched you rise and fall, betray and be betrayed. You think you're unstoppable because you're tied to Roman's name, to the Anoa'i dynasty. But you forget, I'm a McMahon. And when a McMahon gets pushed too far, we push back harder." She paused, pacing now like a lioness in control of the jungle. "Solo Sikoa, the enforcer, the quiet storm. I respect your potential. But you've allowed yourself to become Roman's weapon. How long will you be silent? How long before you realize you're just a pawn in a bigger game? The crowd murmured, watching Stephanie's words cut through the narrative of bloodline dominance like a dagger through silk. Then, her tone changed, not softer, but deadlier. You know, my father always said, perception is reality. And the reality is, the bloodline has gotten too comfortable. You think because Triple H is running things and I've been quiet, you're untouchable. You think there's no one left to challenge you? You're wrong. She raised the mic closer, her eyes narrowing. Consider this your warning. Not just as a former executive, not just as a McMahon, but as someone who loves this business too much to let it rot from the inside. Your era of tyranny is coming to an end. And I won't do it alone. That last line sent the WWE Universe into chaos. Stephanie smirked. The chessboard was set. You want to talk about blood? She said. You want to talk about family? You want to talk about legacy? Then get ready to meet mine. She dropped the mic, and her music hit again, but the message had been made clear. Backstage, chaos ignited. The bloodline was watching. In a private locker room on SmackDown, Roman Reigns stood silent, arms crossed, flanked by Solo Sikoa and a pacing Jey Uso. Jey was nowhere in sight, a growing fracture they'd all felt but dared not confront. She's bluffing, Jimmy said, trying to downplay the threat. She's been gone. She's got no power. Roman slowly turned his head. She's a McMahon, he said coldly. They never bluff. Solo remained stoic, but Roman's gaze lingered on him longer than usual, as if already questioning where his true loyalty lay. The walls were cracking. The aura of control Roman had built was facing its most dangerous threat yet, not a challenger in the ring, but a McMahon with nothing left to lose. Back on Raw, the commentary team speculated feverishly. Would Stephanie align herself with a group of rebels? Could she be working with those wronged by the bloodline, perhaps Cody Rhodes, or even Randy Orton, still looking for redemption? Rumors of a faction forming under her leadership were already swirling, a blend of legacy, vengeance, and chaos. But one thing was certain, war was coming. The bloodline had ruled WWE for years. Championships were won, challengers destroyed, betrayals used as fuel. But this? This was something else. Stephanie wasn't after titles or TV time. She was after the soul of WWE itself. And if Roman Reigns was the heart of the bloodline, then Stephanie McMahon just became the dagger aimed at it. In the weeks that followed, her presence intensified. Unseen allies began to show up. Paul Heyman grew nervous. NXT call-ups appeared unexpectedly. Former rivals of Roman began aligning behind the scenes. Even the mention of the McMahon name began to draw tension across the locker room. WWE was no longer just Roman's yard. It had become a battlefield. The Queen had returned. And she wasn't bowing to any king. Would you like a follow-up featuring the formation of Stephanie's new faction or Roman's response in the ring?